But the strong idea of being inside this pyramid-shaped temple, stuck with me and always has been with me. And it wasn't about what these original tools were used for, which was enlightenment, which was for empowering you to be the best version of you, for you to be able to expand your mind and tap into your true divine power. That's what the tools are for. Yet the tools have been corrupted so that they could be tools of control rather than freedom.
Really excited to have you on, not just because of our now a connection, but reading what you're about and what you share, and the email you sent me on the different points. I truly love when individuals bridge all these worlds together, and it seems like you're using wisdom from the ancient wisdom, and you're deeply connected to our true history. But through that, you've gained tools in order to assist people now in doing what's really it's all about, which is transcending traumas, coming to a state of inner peace. Would you say that's kind of a good assessment?
That is a good assessment. The way I sort of explain it is taking those sort of old, ancient, quite slow techniques and reworking them for the 21st century, because no one in the 21st century has time. We are short on time. We've got no more time to waste. We've wasted plenty of time. It's time to really move forward very rapidly, to start taking action. And so to take the things and the rituals and the tools that took weeks or months to prepare for and do them in an hour or less. And
Yes.
that's very, very exciting.
Right. So, and we'll get into what those techniques are, how you've modified them, but I'd love to just jump right into it. And I want to know, let's start with this one. I would love to know, what is the left-handed path of Isis?
The goddess side is what we consider the side of the body, the left-hand side of the body is what we consider to be the female half of the body energetically. We have the creative brain, which cuts across and then moves into the left-hand side of the body. The male, the logic brain's on the left-hand side and cuts across, and then we have the right side of the body being the masculine side. And I was starting to feel lots and lots of pressure on the left-hand side of my body. Back in those days, I didn't know what that meant. Didn't know what it was. Didn't really know what it was at all. But I kept getting this sensation that was coming on the left-hand side. It was pushing and pushing and pushing. And that really took me to think about what I knew and what I didn't know about that side of my body. And that's when these sort of connections start to make sense. I start to realize that, hey, that is supposed to be the physical side, the physical side, the left side of my body. And actually, funny enough, that's where all my complaints are. That's where all my health issues are. That's where things are wrong. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I have an insulin pump, and my pancreas is on the left-hand side. And when I started to think about all these things, I started to really think, well, how can I look at these issues? What is it about this? And that drew me down many different paths where I started with different, very simple energetic healing modalities, going back, almost 30 years now, different modalities, moving on to understanding how the physical body worked, just the various organs, moving on to doing very simple hands-on balancing techniques to help parts of the body, and then realizing that I needed more than just the energy. I needed to understand how the mind worked. And that guided me to doing NLP, hypnosis, timeline therapy, started to figure out how language really helped the body, how our mind is so powerful if it's working in conjunction with the physical body. And through that experience, through bringing those together, I really found myself drifting more and more towards now the magical side. I'd done the basics. Now is to go and investigate the magics. And of course, the thing that really, I think it draws a lot of people fascinated by it, is the pyramids, the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptian magic that was there. And it was through that little delve down this path that I came to this idea that I've got to work with the goddess. I didn't know what it was or how it was, but it came. I've got to work with the goddess. I see myself as being a man, very logical in my approach, but I was really being called to work with the goddess, work with this goddess energy, and not from a place of wanting to do a goddess circle or anything like that, but trying to understand it, trying to understand that energy. And funny enough, it was through one of my clients. she pushed me really hard. She pushed me to become a better healer. She took what I knew and tried to change that so that I would become a better healer without even knowing it herself. She later on became a student of mine, but later on that she became a teacher of mine. And she was the one that really pushed me to investigate the goddess Isis. And she kept telling me there's this goddess of the left that wants to work with you, the goddess of the left. And I didn't know who the goddess was. And then Egypt came up, and then there was Isis. And that's how I started working with the goddess of the left.
And that's so interesting because, I didn't even connect those dots that the left path of Isis, which I've heard that kind of term before, connects to the feminine energy in the left side of our body, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So
and
when
the divine, the what's happening, as I'm sure you're aware, and many of the listeners are, is that we're in this feminine cycle right now. So we have to embrace the goddess. We have to embrace that energy. The masculine energy is so old school. It's not necessary, but it's corrupt and old and come to the end of its cycle. And we're very much now moving forward, not moving forward, but also in a sphere-like shape, touching to the various aspects of the goddess.
Right. So would you say that the masculine energy has been, well, distorted, but more like a wounded masculine, and that the divine feminine that's coming online could help the wounded masculine become the divine masculine?
Absolutely. 100%. We need to look at the wounds in the masculine, but we also need to heal the feminine. We need to heal the feminine parts of us as men, as divine men, to be able to heal that divine aspect. You cannot heal the divine masculine without first looking at the feminine, because we come from the feminine. We come from that dark place, right? The womb creation. We come from that darkness. That's where we come from. That's where everything comes from. And so that's what we've got to heal first. It's no point fixing the light bulb if you haven't turned the power on. You can change the light bulb as many times as you like, but you've got to make sure there's power before that light bulb will turn on.
Yeah, it's like the feminine energy, the archetype beyond gender is like this receiving force, right? And this nurturing energy as well, and maternal energy, and it's kind of like a nourishing for the soul, a nourishment for the soul. So, and looking at this world and seeing a lot of men having this go 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 mentality, having to produce, there is really little time for us to even know what that really is. And maybe a lot of crime and distortions in how the masculine works out is almost like not having that initial healing with the mother wound. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to explain here.
I think it's that healing, but it's also conditioning. We're all conditioned from birth, and we have this idea of what a man is, what a man should be. And it's to go get there, be the breadwinner, to go compete, to be number one, to fight for what we want, to climb all over other people's, to be the top of that climbing frame, if you want to call it that, or that hierarchy. But that doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore, right? You don't need to belong to that organization to be successful. You don't need to climb your way up from entry level up the layers, management, middle management, senior management, till you get to the top spot. We should be the top spot from number one at any position in that hierarchy.
Right. And with men in general, there's this I forgot the term for it, but there's they give everybody a label. Everybody has a syndrome, right? But there's this syndrome that is a low level depression that most men have in the world. And they talk about it through psychology now, that it's really common, but it's so subtle that most people don't know. And to me, I feel that there's something missing within that masculine.
On the Sunday night. That's when it kicks in, because the next day is Monday.
Yeah, right. You got to get back at it.
Attacks.
Yeah,
that's when men commit suicide on a Monday morning, and that's when you have your heart attack on a Monday morning. When that low level stress, suddenly you're back in that stress and it turns high again. So the man does need healing. We've been trained to look at things very linearly in a straight line, from A to B to C to D to E, where the goddess path is that circle, is that sphere, and is able to touch on all aspects of that sphere without it being that straight line. And my training was always to go in that straight line from A to B to C to D, right, all the way as far as you need to go. But through my experience and through working with the goddess Isis, I've realized that everything's in the womb, everything's in the sphere. So in that center point, you can touch all different aspects and still make the whole, but not necessarily in that linear fashion. And that for me is super exciting, is that you can touch on elements, come back to it, start the conclusion before you start the introduction, bring different pieces together, move those pieces around, and then you have your story.
Wow. Yeah, that's really well said. That's connect some dots for me. Yeah, because we have that masculine linear, which is like third dimensional linear time. But then within the feminine of creation, all things comes from creation. Everything exists at once, right? And you can
Absolutely.
jump on that timeline.
And so we limit ourselves by wanting to do it in that linear fashion because we've been taught that. And that's what our fathers did. That's what our grandfathers did. That's what our great grandfathers did. And they were very good at it because it worked back then.
Whoa. You know, when in the moment, I'm going to get into as much of a history lesson as you can give us into Egypt and your connection to it. But you're just making me realize more things, that we exist in this third dimensional reality. We're going to still be able to interact in a linear form in some level. But if we tap into this feminine energy, we're able to manifest the wholeness of creation within our evolution, which is technically linear.
Yes.
Right? Tap into, basically become multidimensional beings while we still exist in this third dimensional body.
Well, we've agreed to the sort of have time, haven't we? We've agreed on a mass scale level that we're all going to gradually get older. We're all going to have the same look, keep the same face for our lives. But we don't have to. We could actually change that. If we wanted to go outside of that time frame, we could manipulate time and the reality of it that we've constructed to keep order and keep this human brain making sense. This sort of construct of having this day-to-day, this linear path. And so it really is exciting when you start to look at it outside of that limited box and go, actually, if I wanted to change, I can completely change. And I am completely changing. And I am completely changing every single moment all the time. So what if I just stopped for a moment, took myself out of that linear path and put myself in the center? And not the center of Neil's world, not the center of somebody else's world, but they're a center of my world. Me, Oliver, in the center of me, which means that I have infinity all the way around me. I am the center of my infinity. And then if I manipulate my infinity, I really change the world around me. Everything starts to mirror back at me differently.
Yeah.
We mentioned, off air just about various areas of crime and things like that, but that only affects you if it's in your reality. And if you're in the center of your reality and you don't wish that be in your reality, it's not. Yes, it exists, but it's out there. It's not affecting you. It's not to say you don't care, don't have compassion for those people it's happening to, but it's not part of my world right now. I've learned the lessons from that. I don't need to learn them again.
Yeah, the universe is a reflection of our inner world, right? And I've told a few of my friends lately that I'm on a journey to be kind of the stillness in the storm, where no matter what happens externally, my external reality doesn't dictate how I feel about myself internally.
Yeah.
And that's true. That's you knowing that you're in the center of your own creation.
And we just have to remind ourselves. We just have to remind ourselves every day until it becomes automatic.
Yeah.
Those people can drive. You get in your car and you drive. You don't think about it. But the day you first started to drive, you had to think about all the, clutch control, or whether it was automatic, the mirrors, the gears. But now you just jump in and drive. Don't even think about that. It's happening automatic. So with enough training, enough reminding, we put ourselves in that center. When you're in your center, on automatic pilot, life becomes magical. It really does.
I love stories, and I love the stories of our ancient past. It's a huge part of Portal to Ascension. And you shared when we were corresponding that there were distortions in Egypt. So I'd love for you to take some time now to tune into that. when did you have memories of your time in Egypt? What were the memories that you had, right? And what initiations and distortions took place? Can you kind of give us like a timeline of when we fell from grace, so to speak?
It's been a gradual process. There's not just one time that this has happened. And you know, when my first experience of this was, I was in a deep meditation, and I saw myself inside a pyramid as a high priest or of some form, sacrificing somebody on an altar. Now, in today's world, we'd be horrified by that, but I think that was probably fairly common back in those days. The energies were different, the lessons were different, and I was horrified. This was in my meditation, in my mind, in my inner thoughts, in my psyche, even part of me, and I had to then heal that part. And it was about really looking at that part and going, well, what could the Oliver that did that do differently? Why was I sacrificing this person? I was doing it because I've been told to do it. So somebody else had told me to do this. And then I thought, well, what do I do in this situation? And that we're going back now probably about 25 years. So a long time I've been worrying about that. And in that moment, I decided the best way to do would be not to kill the person on the altar, but to kill myself instead. And 25 years ago, that sort of healed that little part of me. But the strong idea of being inside this pyramid-shaped temple, stuck with me and always has been with me. And it's always been what's drawn me all the time back to the stories of Egypt, to that lineage, to that. And then more recently, no, this is not something that I like, and it's quite a hard one, because I found once again myself in this temple misusing power, really misusing and abusing my power at whatever point I was in that particular life. Really taking people and sacrificing them for no reason whatsoever. It was almost like a bloodlust. And that was another trauma, that experience that I'd put myself through. And that again made a very strong imprint on my brain. And I started to realize that so much, when we look at the magical side of Egypt, not necessarily looking at the pyramids and tourist stuff, we look at some of the magical rituals and the Egyptian path that is out there. So much of it had been distorted. So much of it had been distorted by the greed and corruption of man, of human, and man in particular. And that needed to be shifted and changed, because we were passing down through lineages this energy which was based on truth, but it was corrupted. It was corrupted. It had been twisted to suit a certain agenda, and that agenda was all about power and control. And it wasn't about what these original tools were used for, which was enlightenment, which was for empowering you to be the best version of you, for you to be able to expand your mind and tap into your true divine power. That's what the tools are for. Yet the tools have been corrupted so that they could be tools of control rather than freedom. I had to heal that, and it was hard. It was hard because there's layers to these things. There's layers to these traumas that you don't realize that you carry through into this physical form. And this physical form was lots of trauma, and had to go in deep to manipulate and change and to learn those lessons. That again ties into when Isis came to me and said, right, okay, you got to start a school. You got to start this path. And every fiber of my being said, no, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. I'm not interested. I can't do it. You know, this is not right. I've got all this training in sort of the ancient ways, the historical ways, and the tools work. And you're just telling me that I've got to take all of that and reinvent it and change it. And I was pushed. I was pushed. My ego was pushed. I was questioned. I was shown false gods and goddesses. I was, I got messages that were of hate. Stand up to yourself. You are nothing. Constantly bombarding me, pushing. And it was, I almost quit. But if I wasn't so stubborn, I wouldn't have quit. Literally, I had false gods writing me letters, and then, through channeled messages that I knew nothing about, just receiving this channel message going, who do you think you are? You are the false prophet. You are this pushing, trying to break me and saying, make a choice now, deadline.
And this is happening in this life, right?
This is happening in this life. This is happening where I was being pushed to breaking point. I didn't break, obviously. We're far stronger than that. And that pushing is what I needed to get me moving again, because I got complacent. You sort of get this idea that you've got a label, you've got a job title, you've got a name, and that's who you are. And what ISIS and my higher team were trying to do was trying to kick me in the butt and say, hey, it's not like that. Start to question things. Start to question everybody else. Start to question those around you. Start to question the people in your life who've been holding you back. And at that stage, I was doing a lot of training with different schools, and some were really holding me back. Most didn't want me to express my truth. And I was saying, but my truth is my truth. Why would my truth hurt you? It's my truth, not your truth. And that's okay. But I wasn't allowed to express my truth. And when I broke away from all of this, broke away from all that old training, those old schools, those old ways, those old groups that were trying to control, and suddenly I had to now find the new way. And so that's what, for the last 5 years, I've been doing daily, is finding new ways, finding better ways, but at the same time, keeping that stream of energy that comes through every lineage, that comes through every school, if you will. Any organization has an energy that comes with it. To keep that energy as pure as possible, as filled with light as possible. Now, of course, it's not for everybody. It's a challenging path, because you will be pushed, you will be questioned, you will have to deal with your traumas, your fears, your emotions. You will have to work with the Egyptian beings. And by the way, there are many, and some of them can be quite scary. There's always the divine loving part of it, but they can be quite hard, as I found out in my training. And of course, the goddess Isis always tells me, this is your lesson, and it's coming from you. It's because you want this lesson. You asked for this lesson. And at times I've said, why did I ask for this lesson? Why could I not chosen the easy path? Why could I be sitting on that sandy beach with a cocktail in my hand, watching the sun go down, then sweating it out, facing my fears, facing my traumas, questioning my beliefs, pushing myself down to the limit? And I know the answer. I'd be bored senseless after a day like that. Whereas what I've gone through and what I've lived through, what I've pushed myself through, has made me alive, has made me want to do more, has made me want to challenge myself, maybe want to push myself, maybe want me to step out in front of more people and tell these crazy stories. This is what the energy has pushed me to do.
Yeah, it is. And to me, it's almost like we signed up for a roller coaster ride, and it seemed really fun when we were coming,
Absolutely.
And but then sometimes when you're on the roller coaster ride and then you're going up before you're about to drop, you're like, holy crap, why did I decide to come on this thing?
but the key here is to make sure that your roller coaster is always going uphill. So it goes up, down a bit, up, down a bit, up, down, and so it's always going up, right?
Exactly.
If you're going up and then all the way to the bottom again, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's so true.
When you've got to go, hey, this is not working for me. And this is what I've
Right.
learned as well, by the way. This is something really close to my heart. Is I've tried many things, and a lot of them, I'm going to say most of them, have been a great roller coaster ride up, and then they just dropped me all the way down again.
Yeah.
And I've realized that, hey, that was nice while I was in it, but I've got nothing from it. And I've got to start climbing back out of that hole again. And we don't want to climb out of the hole, because the hole is hard to climb out of. You want to stay up.
Right.
Up.
Keep moving.
Little dips rather than big, massive dips.
Right. So just one more question really about the Egypt, and I want to get into the modalities and all that you're offering. But firstly, you said that truth was corrupted in Egypt, and it was some beautiful things, and that those tools for empowerment became the tools for control, right? And it's interesting because I was raised Hindu, and that's what I noticed in Hinduism too. It's crazy how much information is in Hinduism that's the truth, like quantum physics, ETs, Mahabharata, space chariots. But then,
all the maths is all there.
right,
Mathematics is all there.
but then blinders on the people because the truth got corrupted, and that's because we fell into a denser age and we weren't able to. The veil was really strong and dense at one point. Now it's thinning out. But I'm curious because in Egypt, I was a senator in Egypt around 13,000 years ago, and I misused my power very badly. And I lived for 1,000 years. And when I was around 400 years old, I was exiled to an island off the coast of Africa by myself for 700 years to die. And then I got a download that part of me coming back here now was to correct that timeline, right? So I'm curious what you feel about karma. Does it work in that way? Because ultimately we've been everything. You might have had that one life where you misused your power, but you may have been a guru 2 lives after. You may have been one right before it, right? So do you feel like on some level you come in to correct that timeline, or is that maybe kind of not explaining it very well? Like, how does this connect to karma?
So karma really does exist, and it definitely is. And in fact, now if I punched you right now, I get karma straight away because you punch me or smack me back. Very simple, very quick. And karma definitely is speeding up. So there is definitely a move where karma is definitely speeding up. Do any wrong, it gets righted pretty quickly. But really the idea of karma is that it's a lesson you need to learn. And if you haven't learned it, then you're going to face some form of karma. But at the same time as you might be receiving the karma or experience that karma, you might also just be showing that lesson to somebody else. And so I think it's very difficult to be black and white with it, saying you screwed up, so there's karma. But there's others involved in it as well. There's other people that need to learn lessons, and sometimes we put ourselves forward to teach that other person the letter, to be that bad person in someone's life so they can learn the lesson. But definitely, all my journeys, all my memories from Africa as a Black African, from Egypt, from Atlantis, from the Mayan in Mexico, that whole area, all those memories that I've gone through definitely are all came with lots of karma, and definitely part of my role is to definitely heal that karma. But also, I also know that I've been in this sort of situation, this sort of teaching role before, but maybe not in the same way. Well, definitely not in the same way. And then we've also got to look at the idea that actually all these lives are all playing out at the same time. We just have this time that we are focused on right now, in this particular life, this particular world, this particular stream, all happening right now in our minds. So this is what we focused on. But there's nothing to say that everything else isn't also happening right now. It's just that our brains can only focus on this one particular stream in the moment. I'm not catching you. I've lost your sound.
Right here. So let's get into now. How did you end up acquiring the modalities that you are utilizing now? And you shared earlier that kind of shifting the modalities to be used in the 21st century in a more rapid environment. Do these modalities have a lineage to ancient Egypt where you may be utilizing them there as a priest, and now you're taking the same wisdom but morphing it in a different way that's palatable to people that exist or
That's
that are incarnated now.
you've explained it beautifully. That's exactly what I've done. I've taken that memory, that experience, that wisdom that's been gained from lifetimes, and I've read other people's work, seen what's there. I've been initiated into different traditions and things like that as well, and gone, okay, well, that actually works. That doesn't work. That looked at things and then gone into the deep meditations and got advice and got saying this has to be rewritten, or this is not right, or there's things that have changed. That is too slow. You know, when I went through my first initiation process, it was a full 2-day weekend, starting at 9 o'clock, finishing around 6, and a bit later on the second day. And it was a great experience. I loved it. And that same process took maybe a week 50 years ago. And prior to that, probably took a month. And we don't have that sort of time anymore. And Isis came to me very strongly and said, you've got to take what you know and speed it up. And I was, well, I can't speed it up. And so I started, and I was taught and trained that you could only be done in the physical. And she said, no, the physical is the stream. And that took a while for me to get. So I had to learn how to do what I was doing in the physical, but do it online, but still with the same power as it has in the physical. And that was a real mind overworking, trying to figure out logically, until I learned that actually I've just got to be the center point. And then all the information will come to me when it's necessary and when it's needed. And so that's how I brought changes to that old wisdom, bringing it into the 21st century ritual way of doing things. No one likes a full page long ritual or prayer to read through. It's great to do it when you've got the time. And it's great to put the energy into something like that if you've got the time. But our lives are so busy, so fast. There isn't time to do a powerful ritual that's 2 pages long every day. You want to keep that down to a few lines. So could I take that 2-page document of quite difficult to understand and read text, keeping the energy, cleaning the energy, purifying the energy behind it, getting it back to its original truth, its original power, but in the 21st century rather than the 16th century or 14th century or back. So that was my goal. And it's because I like to work fast. My brain works fast. I get bored if I've got to do a full page worth of ritual. I mean, I don't mind, I can do it. But for me, it's all about speed. It's about efficiency. It's about focus.
Exactly. And so what does that look like? I know that you do etheric trauma and soul fragmentation. You assist people with that. So if you got these rituals, these ceremonies, or these documents, and you're making it more concise, are you dealing with affirmations to release the traumas, or what are the exact tools that you're utilizing?
With the etheric trauma release method, I realized that trauma, there's lots of trauma therapists out there and do great work, by the way. But I realized it wasn't working for me. I needed to be able to go in there very quickly and deal with trauma very, very fast. No one wants to relive trauma, but we all do. We do it all the time. And so I really wanted to find and figure out a way where we could shift trauma quickly from someone's body, someone's energy, from their structure, without them losing the meaning behind it. Because both the positive, the negative, the good, the bad, the ugly, the black, the white, the gray, and everything else you do in your life makes you who you are. So we don't just take away a trauma and say, hey, that doesn't exist anymore, and throw it away, because it does exist. It's what got you to the point you're at. You take that trauma away, you'd fall over. So I wanted to keep that in place, but take away the energetic charge. I wanted to take the light bulb out, but leave the wire and the switch. So you could flick the switch as much as you like, just wouldn't turn the light bulb on. And so that was my real goal with the trauma. And it was by working with a lot of people online and realize, how could I do what I did in the physical quicker and faster without the same tools I had in the physical? And that's how I got to this trauma method of really working on the etheric body which then affects the physical body, and it makes that lasting change. And for me, it really is about just seeing that in someone's space, seeing it in their aura, seeing it on their physical, and clearing it. Most people's traumas, believe it or not, are entities, small little energetic parasites that are in people's energetic space. Right? If we take an example of someone who is always angry. So let's say you got angry and you had a really bad day, and what would happen energetically is you'd start leaking a bit of energy, and maybe you'd make a hole in your aura. Maybe you had 15 cups of coffee and really stressed. You got a few holes in your aura, and you get angry, and along comes a little parasite just to feed off that energy. It's just the same if you take some food out of a fridge, maybe some chicken, put in your kitchen counter, the phone rings, you answer the phone, you come back, there's a fly in the kitchen. Where did that fly come from? Well, that fly could smell that frequency, that vibration, that smell of that food, and came and found it. You leave that fly there, 10 minutes later, half an hour later, that fly's caught all its buddies, and now you've got 3 flies in your kitchen around that plate of food. The last thing the fly wants you to do is to put that food back in the fridge. Now, it's the same with ourselves. When we've got, let's say, a parasite feeding on anger, the energy of anger, the last thing that parasite wants is for you to heal that anger, right? So you got anger, you got a few parasites buzzing around you, a few flies in your aura feeding on this energy. They're not doing anything wrong. They're doing what they're designed to do, to feed on that energy. You go off and do a wonderful meditation and you feel fantastic, but these flies aren't loving it. They don't like this. And so you come home, you put your keys down, and then you trip over the rug, you bang your knee, and guess what? You're back in anger again. And the flies go, oh, thank goodness, Oliver's back in anger again. We've got our food source sorted. So that drove me to looking at the physical, looking at these parasites and going, we take the parasites out and we seal the container, the energetic body, so that they can't get back in again. And then we look at what the root cause of was that original anger. What caused that original anger to take place? And we heal that. And yes, that won't stop you from being angry, but it'll stop you from being stuck in the angry so that you heal that process. You'll still be able to have the anger, which gets you motivated, gets you changed, but you're not going to be blowing holes in your aura and leaking energy.
Whoa, that's very well said, and it makes sense. So the whole concept of flip, you allowed it, you still have the switch that you can flip, but the bulb has been removed. So the fuse, that like kind of that depressive state or that emotional trigger gets removed, but you still have the lesson to make the decisions from it, and you're not robbing someone of the experience.
You've got to have that experience. But the problem with our emotions is that we step in them and go, oh, this is painful, this is horrible, I don't like this feeling, I don't want to be here. And we step out of it, try and clean ourselves up again, and then we jump straight back into another one. And we keep going down, jumping from patch to patch into these emotions, these emotions that are low for us. And we go like, why are you doing that? Why would you want to jump back into that? Another example would be the fire. You know, everybody has probably burnt themselves in a fire or on a hot pan or a stove or something like that. You've burnt yourself, you know it's hot, so you let go. Or you take your hand out of the fire. Now, you don't go back 5 minutes later and stick your hand in the fire and go, oh, you're still hot. Well, some people do, but most normal people don't. You know that the fire is going to burn you, but you don't hate the fire. You've got the warmth from the fire, the ability to cook your food, the barbecue. You've got the community aspect, drink the circle of friends around you, around the fire, having a good time. You appreciate the fire, but you also respect the fire. You also know that the fire can hurt you, so you don't do it. It's the same thing with our emotions. We can say, hey, I appreciate anger. I see you, anger. I'm glad I got angry in that moment because it created a change in me, created momentum for me to move, to do something, to fix something, to save somebody. But I'm not going to be stuck there. I'm just going to be observant of you and use you as a tool when I need to use you to cook my food, provide warmth, etc. So that's how I sort of look at the world, really. these days.
Earlier, we spoke about the roller coaster analogy and dropping deep. You said that you used to drop really deep below and it would be harder to get out of it. I think that's what you were sharing. But then you made some shifts in your life or found other modalities. Because I relate a lot too. I went around the world looking for hundreds of modalities. And not until I got to chanting and breath work did anything work for me, you know? But so what assisted you in going from those extreme highs to extreme lows to, you know, edging up where those dips weren't as much of a fall?
It's a difficult one because there's many layers to these things. You know, there's every tool will work until you don't need the tool anymore. So I always look at things like, if you're lying in the gutter, you need anybody to help you up onto the pavement. All right. And so any tool will help. Anybody can help. But if you're on the first floor trying to get onto the second floor, and someone who's in the pavement trying to push you up to the second floor, that tool's not going to work. So we have many people out there doing incredible work at different levels. So you've got healers that are healing those people in the gutter. You've got healers that are helping people on the pavement. You've got healers that are helping people into the building, and so it goes up. And of course, our goal in life is to work on ourselves enough so that we can be at the top of the building, so we can get that overall experience, perspective of the world from that place of what we would, I guess, loosely term enlightenment, or highest potential, or reach the higher self, whatever words you want to use. And so when we're looking at modalities that work, they work for a period maybe, or they don't work at all. And so for me, my real thing is, it's really got to ring true to me inside my heart before I'll do it. Before I just go and try anything. Hey, this new course, that sounds amazing. Let's go and do 2 grams of sand and a bucket of broccoli. I don't know, whatever it is, whatever modality was out there. And there were a lot of crazy ones out there that I tried. Right. To see that, are they going to last the test of time? Am I going to feel the same way tomorrow? Or am I going to feel worse 3 hours later? And in my experience, and this is no disrespect to the people I worked with, but sometimes I left a place feeling great for an hour, and I was worse off an hour later, 2 hours later. And so it really that was a lesson, taught me, what are the fruits? What am I benefiting? What am I able to pick from that tree later on in life? And my real guidance system was, when you've made enough mistakes, you start to listen to what your heart says, and you don't jump into FOMO, that fear of missing out, because there's always FOMO with these things. You know, sign up now and you get a special price. Don't sign now. And to stop and say, hey, it can wait. It's me I'm dealing with here. This divine soul, Oliver, and all that I represent. So what does that inner part of me that knows say? Because we all have ability to recognize truth. We all have that unique ability to recognize truth. And that truth will ring to you. If I had a grain of sand in my hand and I told you it's the beach, and you'd never seen a beach before, part of you would say, he's speaking some truth. Now then I go and base my whole philosophy around this one grain of sand because I believe this to be the beach. And I sell you that beach. You're going to get it, pay for it, and then at some point realize that it's just a grain of sand. And there's much more to a beach than one grain of sand. But we recognize that truth. And this is why it's always good to take time before jumping to any modality, any practice. Does it ring true inside of me? And is that truth going to last? Is there going to be a benefit at the end of it? I'm all for trying things. But if your gut says no, don't do it.
That's beautiful advice. What you shared was, we can all recognize truth, right? That's a huge thing for us to really realize and know now, that the time of the guru is over. The time of the self-guru is here. And tune in and use discernment rather than jumping on to the next thing. You know, there's another syndrome out there, which is a syndrome of people being addicted to self-help and healing. I was in it, man. You
And
know, like,
I've had clients that come to me and go like, "Oh, great session! You're fantastic, amazing work.
yeah,
You've really changed my life." And then 6 months, they got the same trauma back again, and they're going back to somebody else to deal with that again, new person to go
right,
through that same cycle again because they're addicted to that cycle.
right. And there could be something to do also with thinking that we're never good enough, and having that belief system of we're not healed, we're not good enough. Daddy never told me, acknowledged me, or was proud of me, or whatever. And then it's always like looking for, well, I'm not where I should be, right? And rather than really owning and being present in this moment. What's
So we
that?
get addicted to the story,
Yeah.
and the story is, "Hey, my life was so difficult. I had to deal with this trauma. I had to fix this one, help that one. I was abused." Whatever this trauma is that you've bought into,
Yes.
and you're so good at telling the story, and you can heal from your trauma, but you keep telling yourself the same story. And what happens is, of course, you know what the universe says: "Hey, you're telling the same story. You want to be traumatized again? Okay, let's find something else that's bigger, greater, better than the last trauma, because you can then heal yourself from that trauma because you're
Yeah.
stuck in that." So change your story. Go for a healing. If you've been ill and you get better, I used to be ill. You could tell the story what you went through, but guess what? Now I'm healing, healthy, growing, becoming better and better each day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Someone told me recently, because I was saying for a while, like I can't get rid of these stories. I just keep saying the same story over and over. How do I get rid of the story? And I like what you shared about change the story, because this is what that person said. Don't try to get rid of the story. Just write a new chapter.
Yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect.
And that's the thing, because that story, and in this world of duality, the darkness gives us the contrast of the light, and most of the people in this world have had the deepest wounds. A lot of the healers, speakers, presenters, and we've had the deepest wounds because that was the catalyst for us to search for
Yeah,
healing,
and to
right?
ask the questions and
Yeah,
to go in and to really heal. and
exactly, man.
and it's hard because it takes courage. It takes courage to look at yourself. It's much easier to say, "Oh, Neil, you've got this problem, that problem, this problem, this, and I can fix all those things." But when you start looking at yourself, you have to really honestly face yourself and go, "This is what's wrong with me. How do I fix me? How does the
Yeah,
healer fix the healer?" Right? And
yeah,
when you've fixed yourself, and I've got a long way to go still, but I'm
same.
working on it. Right? I'm
Yeah,
working on it because you have to. Um,
yeah,
and then and part of what ISIS told me was, "You've got to go out there and heal the healers." I'm like, well, if I've got to heal the healers, I've got to heal myself, because the world needs healers. Let's be honest, the world needs healers, and they need good healers. They need the Reiki, the massage, the crystal healing, the quantum energetics, whatever it might be that they're doing, to really be there for the billions of people that are waking up, and that realize that their old ways aren't working, and they've got to deal with their traumas. They've got to deal with their fears. They've got to get their bodies back into balance. They've got to get the acupuncture, the meridians all flowing again. So we need healers to step it up,
yeah.
and to do healing,
Right.
and not reflecting their issues back at their patients.